to another episode of the Love and Reality Podcast. I am your host, Ricky Valero. On this week's episode of the Love and Reality Podcast, we are going to be breaking down episode 4 of Vanderpump Rules. Yes, we're continuing our infamous journey through the world of Vanderpump Rules from the beginning without having have ever watched a single episode at all. Each week, I am joined by my partner here, Mr. Matthew Fox. How are you, sir?
I will say when we started this, one was more than enough when we were watching. But after watching this week's episode, I almost felt like immediately watching a second one. I just felt it would color my commentary, so I held off. But it is getting more. I don't know. Better is the right word. It's getting more entertaining.
I think that's the word I'm looking for as well. That's what I'm like. I'm watching it back and I'm like, is this show good? I don't know, but is it entertaining? Absolutely. This was an incredible episode. Okay, let me just go ahead and say this. All right, this is by far probably my favorite episode so far. But before we get too crazy into that, first things first, folks, thanks you guys for tuning into the Love and Reality Podcast. If you're listening on podcast platforms, do us a favor, give us a 5-star rating. Go a long way from saving me from a couple of 1-star ratings because I couldn't pronounce people's names right. And also just because it would give the Love and Reality Podcast more of a spotlight into the world of podcasts. And if you're watching here on YouTube, do me a favor, hit like, comment, subscribe. Tell us your thoughts on Vanderpump Rules as a collective whole without any spoilers into the future, because we already know that all of these people seem to be awful human beings, but I don't care. I still love Tom Sandoval right now and love him even more after this episode. But without further ado, Season 1, Episode 4, Vanderpump Rules. It is titled Vegas with a Vengeance. The synopsis of the episode is the SUR staff heads to Las Vegas for Stassi's birthday, but Sheena stays back to make sure things run smoothly at SUR. Stassi disinvites Jax from Vegas so she can spend the weekend with her new boyfriend Frank, but when Jax crashes the party, a fight breaks out. Oh, yes, it does. All right. So we begin with the emphasis of people packing for the party. They're all going to Vegas, but there's a few issues with the planning of the party. Okay. First things first, we found out Stassi looked like she was suspended from work, I guess.
She got suspended last week.
Right. So she was suspended from work. So she doesn't
Well,
really
was
have
it really suspension, or they just wanted to teach her a lesson? They left her off the schedule for a week.
Right, exactly. Yeah, who knows what the correct verbiage are. But the problem is, so we have issues with who's riding with who, right? You know what I mean? We'll start there. There's some other stuff that's going to go on. We'll talk about it in a minute. But they're packing and everybody is on their way. A few people, so I do love Stassi's explaining of how she invited people. She invited because apparently everybody from SUR are all her friends, even though she hates everybody. But
And
she
those are
invited,
her only friends, apparently.
right, exactly. So which is true because there's a moment later in the episode and all of those people were from SUR. Yeah, I didn't even think about that until you got a good point there.
No, the only people she knows, apparently.
So she invites the people she wants to go initially because she wants them to be able to get off first. Now, the funny thing is there's a moment later in the episode where she hangs out with the other people that were invited but didn't come till later. So did they watch this back and be like, "Oh, so we're just the second
The
tier of her
second
friend
wave.
list?" Are you I'm the second wave of your friend list? But we'll talk about that in a second. But so
Also, can we bring up for a minute? They start out the episode with what I think is a very salient point. Where are they getting this money? Because they're talking about how tight things are. They only work like a couple shifts a week, so I can't imagine they're making like $100 an hour to be in 2012 to be working at SUR. And now she's been suspended. Living in Southern California ain't cheap. She's trying to move.
she
They're
broke her
going.
she broke her lease.
Yeah, she broke her lease, and now they are going to Las Vegas and staying at the Hard Rock, which that's not the Circus when you're coming down to prices. Hard Rock is on the upper tier. It's not Caesar's Palace, but it ain't that far off. And they look like they had some glam spots. Plus, getting drinks in Las Vegas? You think it's expensive getting drinks in LA? Holy smokes.
Yeah, and yeah, you're right. Because like I mean, Kristen was saying she's broke because Tom hasn't paid her back for all the money he has borrowed from her. I love Tom. And then of course, Stassi's big thing was making sure everybody was supposed to be nice to her new. I don't know if she ever called him and her boyfriend, but we're just insinuating that they're boyfriends or whatever. A few more people decided that they didn't want to work at SUR, but Lisa apparently shut that down too. Um, the ride situation, right? This was hilarious. We have 75 different cars heading to Vegas with probably could have been a 2 people ride, or if maybe you rent a van, you could have probably all fit together. However, we know why the boys didn't ride with anybody because they were sneaking jacks in their car. So we had Tom, and I think
Peter.
Peter, Tom, Peter, and then of course Jax was with them, who's not supposed to be coming, but they wanted to sneak him in because
Frank is
obviously
also on this trip, so that they have like 25 bartenders, yet they were all
driving in this car. So then, yeah, and we didn't see one bartender in the entire episode when they were at SUR, I don't think.
no. It was so low that apparently Lisa Vanderpump had to wait tables.
Exactly. So, and then what made it worse was Kristen, Katie, and Katie didn't want to ride with Stassi because she was bringing Frank with her, and they didn't want to ride with Frank in the car because they don't like Frank. I'm sorry, when it comes down to it, Frank really, I don't understand whose allegiance is to who here. I will never understand that. Doesn't make any sense. But I don't like Frank. I don't Frank and also I'm not mad at him. You know what I mean? I wouldn't ride with Frank anyway because I think Frank's annoying. I think Frank was just trying to slide in there to get him some action, which I mean, apparently it worked. But Jax obviously got disinvited. He's riding with the boys. SUR is jam packed because there's like only 3 people. There's only like 3 people that didn't bolt to Vegas. I do love that Lisa comes in and just sees like one glass and was like, "There's a spot on this glass." You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, if you're charging $110 per entree,
well, yeah. I mean, I guess you can't have spots in your glasses. All right, so this was hilarious too, right? So they get to the hotel, right? I love this scenario here. They get to the hotel. Stassi and Frank are staying together in the room, and then Katie and Kristen didn't book their rooms right because apparently it's under Tom's name. And then, of course, Stassi invites them to get ready in her room, and she was like, "Nah, fam." And then Jax comes in. Obviously, Jax told Tom, which I can only imagine when that came out, that ended up being hell for Tom for not telling him. Because I mean, he had to have known that everybody has to know that they rode with Tom, and Peter, right? This dynamic, the car ride, the expectations, we all knew this was going to go to hell, right, Matt?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, and then I think the icing on the cake. First off, where does Jax get the money to leave that nice of a bouquet in Stassi's room? Because that was a nice bouquet.
Money is more of a mystery in here than on your average like scripted television show where they just seem to magically have it. You mentioned you wonder how much they're getting paid by the show, and that's got to be a fair question because we have not really seen them doing any. There's references that they go on modeling jobs or whatever. It's hard to imagine that pays a ton. And
I have a theory that I think that obviously Bravo paid for this Vegas trip, right? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like they had to have paid for some of this because you're right, unless it's all on Stassi's dad's credit card. You know what I mean? Like, that's the only, it's her birthday. I could see him footing the bill for a lot of things. Or, she's probably just, signed up for another credit card and is running that up as well. But that doesn't include everybody else, right? You know what I mean? That doesn't include everybody else because you're right. We're going to parties. We're going to places. We're going to Chippendales, which we'll get to in a minute. We did have a big revelation. We had a big revelation about Jax. which scared me because I'm like, again, we're early on in this process. I don't hate Jax. I feel empathy for Jax right now. I'm not saying he was a great boyfriend because he probably wasn't, but I do think that what Stassi did to him didn't even really give him the opportunity to explain this whole pregnancy thing. It was just like Frank's right, even though Frank is the opposition in this entire thing. Jax does reveal that he did get a girl pregnant in Vegas. However, it was 3 years ago before he was with Stassi. And I was like, oh, well, that clarifies it. Again, and this is my question to you.
So that's what he said is essentially Frank knows all these things and took real facts. He just changed
The narrative, yeah.
Yeah.
Which only makes me hate Frank even more. You know what I mean? That's some shitty stuff. You know what I mean? Especially since we did see Jax at the bar confining in Frank, saying, how sad he was a sad panda and talking about their relationship and stuff like that. So we're definitely teaming up on Frank. I am teaming up on Frank. I'm not going to speak for Matt, but maybe Matt will join me in teaming up on Frank in here. This is my favorite part of the episode. You texted me about it, and I could not wait for you to watch this part of the thing. We have, I don't know, we're going to have a segment that we need to add to the show every week where we have like Tom's quotes. It came at the best part of the entire show where everyone is at Chippendales. Tom is just not thrilled. And Tom had probably, another great quote. And can you feed us that quote this week, Mr. Fox?
Yeah, I really, appreciated it. They're in the front row at Chippendales. First of all, the guy's not too pleased that that's where they're going to go, and then really not too pleased they're up close, and you get some good photos. He's like, being in the front row at Chippendales is like being in the front row at SeaWorld. You're ducking, you're trying not to get splashed with fluids like dude sweat. What other fluids, man? I mean,
oh man,
I'm never going, but well, and also you're there with your dates, but then he sat with the other Tom.
Yeah.
So is the other Tom now your date, and the girl sat? So that's even.
And they didn't even really like sit like together. It was kind of the dynamic of their seating arrangement was a little weird.
The dynamic of everything's a little weird. I mean, technically, I think that Peter guy is the manager of SUR. So not only did all of her staff leave, her manager was like, "Peace, heading out this weekend." And usually, when you're the manager, if you're short, you're the one that's
picking up
the
slack.
floor. Instead, right, he was sharing a room with Jax, whispering some sweet nothings. And then later that night, pretending like he's shocked and didn't even know Jax was there. I'm like, dude, how did you escape unscathed in Stassi's wrath? You're literally the one sharing a room with him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
This entire,
let's see here. I did think it was hilarious that Lisa said she might have to pop into a cute dress and bust tables herself. I would have paid money to see that. Sheena, which this is the funny thing about it is, Sheena stepped up, which I expected, right? Kind of based off what we saw last. Sheena steps up to the plate, knocks it out of the ballpark, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. This is only going to make her shine more in Lisa's eyes. It's only going to make her rise up. What we believe Lisa does apparently have like rankings of her waitresses and bartenders, because she kind of insinuates around that. So I think she's only going to level up. And you're right, because even Peter texted Jax and told him to come after dinner. So Peter knows what's going on, obviously not just staying with him, but he's like pretending to not know about things.
Well, and he comes out unscathed. He's like, yeah, well, all of her friends, she throws out when Jax arrives. He gets to stay with her at that club, and then the next day when it's round 2, he's the only one from round 1 who survived.
Exactly. So my favorite thing about this,
she'll date Peter next.
Maybe
she's working her way through the barbacks.
Of course, Jax walks in and says, "Now the party's here," which obviously he says hi to basically everybody, and then he says, "Frank can suck my dick," which was classic. This whole dynamic got very weird very fast, because it went from a Frank versus Jax battle to like everybody versus Stassi and Frank battle, which was very interesting because Frank says some shit. He says, it isn't bad to have someone 10 years younger than you paying all your bills. And then Tom Short stands up. I think it was Shorts, I think, right? Said,
Yeah, Schwartz.
"Fuck you, Stassi." And then he poured a beer on her. And then I'm trying
Yeah.
to figure out what the fuck is happening. First things first, let me explain something. If a man of any sort pours a beer on my significant other, I'm fighting that guy, which
Instead, Frank kind of dashed out of the way
he
to make sure
completely,
he didn't get anything on him.
he like, it was like a bullet coming his way and shoved the girlfriend in the way. You know what I mean? And then like Frank threatened to break every bone in his body, and Jax got up and they wanted to fight. And then of course, my favorite part of this entire thing was Jax tells the camera, they do the cut scene here, and Jax said he had like the devil on his shoulder that wanted to go after him, which I thought was hilarious. And then Jax says a hilarious thing out loud: "Enjoy the taste of my dick." And then my problem is this, right? Why doesn't Jax say, when he was talking about the pregnant thing, say, "I didn't get anybody pregnant recently"? He never one time has defended his thing about not getting somebody pregnant here.
I mean, he said he wants to talk to her about it. She doesn't really seem open to hearing it. So I guess, they're dysfunctional.
So Frank said, "Unless you want to end up in the hospital, you better leave." And now Sandoval went out. This is my favorite part of the whole entire thing. Tom
Somehow he
Sandoval rips
ended
his
up
shirt off.
shirtless. Yeah.
Tom Sandoval rips his shirt off, which he's later made fun of for.
By his own
By his
girlfriend. You
by his
shirtless
girlfriend.
didn't look like somebody I should be dating. Oh.
And first things first, I want to say this: Sandoval's a real one. Okay, he's standing up for his boy. You know what I mean? I ain't mad at it. You know what I mean? Standing up for his boy, he's getting involved. I don't know. I really feel like Frank would have beat the shit out of Tom, but that's neither here or there because Tom doesn't seem like a very big guy. But hey, I'll stand for anybody that's going to stand for their boy in this moment. Stassi's yelling at Shorts. I don't know. This entire moment, let me explain to you what I took away from this moment. I love Tom Sandoval right now as of episode 4. And Frank's a bitch. That's really what I took away from this entire thing.
Yeah. Um, I maintain really none of them are too likable at this point in time.
I don't disagree with that, but I like Tom just because
Did,
Tom is.
did Jax get an unfair shake in episode 3? Sure. But he turned that unfair. Like, I don't know how you could still be on his side after all this because he's like, there would have been a way to, to be Adam Sandler. This is how I win.
Yeah.
But that ain't it.
Yeah.
Maybe we can just follow Tom and Tom around as they go from male review to male review, getting stuck in the front row.
All right, so we got the second wave of SUR employees, as we alluded to earlier, to hang out with Stassi, except for Peter's the only one that got to
Who are
stay.
fairly unrecognizable, but apparently all fine with getting naked on camera.
Yes, and then of course we see Jax leave. Frank apparently did the same, but then we find out something that I didn't know. Apparently, Stassi pulled Katie's hair and poured a drink on her. We never saw this.
I never saw that. Yeah. Also, Jax flies back, so we're just continuing to up the escalation of costs because getting that last minute flight from Vegas to LA. I know flights from Vegas to anywhere are not as much as other places, but still, like, and he took some kind of Uber to the airport. I mean,
yeah,
money is an illusion.
I did think this was funny from Stassi's point of view that she took a picture at breakfast with everybody and sent it to Kristen and them, who are like, fumbling about at the hotel room together.
And then acts like they're the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
But also, which leads Katie to call Lisa to like try to narc Stassi out. And is that like calling mom to tell on your sibling?
Yeah,
and
then
that,
she says
that we needed Lisa and her husband to be in this episode. Can you give them a call?
Right, and it was she tells her that Stassi grabbed her by the back of the head and poured a drink on her and asked her not to be scheduled with Lisa. Lisa's like, I don't care. Like she said, whatever happened in Vegas stays in Vegas. You know what I mean? And then if Jackson Frank can't get it together, one of them has to go. And then, of course, things continuously get worse. Everyone goes to Vanity to wish Stassi a happy birthday. Sure sounds like a great thing to do. And then the ladies sit down, they argue with each other. She said, I didn't pull your hair. They bicker back and forth. She said, the bottom line, it's my birthday. What I say goes.
I just looked something up, and I have to admit that right now I'm shook. Did you know that Frank was in Damien Chazelle's Whiplash?
Was he really?
Yeah, the original Whiplash short.
Oh, the short film. Okay.
I know, but
Interesting. That's
that hurts a
still,
little bit.
that does hurt a little
You and
bit.
I are like big Damien Chazelle stands, and
Yeah.
that's kind of he did it right around the same time that this show is airing because that short was 2013.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay. So he was just background, though. That makes me, I mean,
I know, but
but still, that's,
to have him touch greatness like
yeah,
that,
that's harmful.
that's biting. Um, Nothing about I don't know if Stassi thought that she was making herself look like the hero here, but she's been on the bobsled to No Fansville for 4 episodes, and I don't think we've hit bottom yet, but we got to be close.
Yeah. I
Nothing.
mean,
Why would anyone be friends? Fortunately, this is filmed in the summer of 2012 and aired in the winter of 2013. So it was probably 6 or 7 good months before these people figured out that she used them as pawns and probably didn't really care. And
yeah. I mean, the thing about it is, at the end of the day, one of the things that I find interesting is the dynamic here is these all people suck and hate each other, and they don't want anything to do with each other, but they continuously hang out with each other and do things. And my thing is this: my overall thoughts of this episode are this: I loved it. Great episode, very entertaining. Lisa continued to stop letting people around her work. Her husband tried to work, and apparently it was like a video of their daughter's wedding. She accused him of watching porn on his computer, even turned his computer around just to make sure he wasn't watching porn, which I found hilarious. But my MVP of this episode, I told you last week we're going to start having MVPs of the episode. My MVP of this week's episode is Tom Sandoval. And let me explain why. I think he's the MVP. One, because he came with us with another beautiful quote that, he might as well, it's instead of quoting Shakespeare, we're going to start quoting Tom Sandoval in life. And then two, the other reason why he's the MVP is because I think that him ripping off his shirt and being there for his boy, protecting his, or trying to protect his boy, and was probably getting ready to take an ass whooping like a man, was still there for his boy. So I can't be mad at Tom Sandoval for that. So my MVP of episode 4 is Tom Sandoval. What about you, Fox?
Yeah, and I was pretty close to going the same way, but I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to go with Peter. You know what? Peter is dead center of everything, and nothing sticks to him. Not to mention, he is the manager of a restaurant that is having a staffing crisis and still gets to go to Las Vegas, and somehow is the only one in this group that isn't drawing the ire of Lisa Vanderpump. You know what? It's good work if you can get it. And, he's Jack's confidant. He gets to ride in the fun car with the boys on the way up there. He gets to stay at all the venues. He gets to go to the other brunch. Nothing sticks to him. And you know what? That is an amazing skill.
It really is. And that's a really solid MVP pick, honestly. Looking ahead to next week's episode, folks, before obviously next week's episode is titled probably the funniest thing I've ever seen in my entire life, which is titled I'm not a ghetto bitch. Yeah.
Well, and they pull these titles from something. I bet someone says that
absolutely.
in the episode, and I can't wait to
figure out who. Apparently, Stassi comes back from Vegas to find out Jax has started dating one of her friends. Katie and Kristen have turned against her. Lisa calls a staff meeting to put a stop to the infighting. Laurea-Leigh explodes on Stassi for sending her bullying text messages, and Sheena nervously prepares for her first live performance at the world-famous Roxy. So it sounds like we're in for a hell of a barn burner of an episode, and I, for one, am very, very excited. I will say this: it's going to be very hard to top our time in Vegas. But that is it for this week's episode of the Love and Reality Podcast, following Vanderpump Rules from the beginning. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, Matthew Fox, for joining me. I'm still glad we're friends.